If you're having a hard time right now dealing with anxiety or depression because of something convicted felon Donald Trump has done, here's some tips to help you overcome the next 4 years. Check out our new Resist Donald Trump, Fascism, Nazis, and Hate stickers, I Did That stickers, and Make Lying Wrong Again pins at ProfessorPride.com. As we all know, convicted felon Donald Trump has started to enact his Project 2025 plan ever since taking office. In fact, from the 293 objectives listed in his 920-page manifesto published before the election, 82 of them have already been completed, meaning they're 34% done only a month in. If you just look at anti-LGBTQ objectives, they're 67% completed already. But with everything going on, I want you to know that you're not alone. A majority of Americans and the rest of the world absolutely hate convicted felon Donald Trump. A majority of Americans never voted for him, and a majority of world leaders won't spend a second in the same room with him. Second, it's important to take a step back and focus on your mental health every once in a while. That's why we find it best to set boundaries with media consumption. Of course, you should still watch your favorite LGBTQ YouTube shows like ours, but too much of anything can be a bad thing. One of Trump's top advisors, Steve Bannon, said in a recent interview with Frontline that their main goal is to overwhelm the media with a flood of news every day. So Trump's name is everywhere all the time.
So what we've got to do is just hit, and keep it. It's momentum. The opposition party is the media. And the media can only, because they're dumb and they're lazy, they can only focus on one thing at a time. And the one thing they'll mainly focus on is either they do the horse race, or once the horse race, who's in, who's out. Right. It's like the high school, who are the cool kids in the cafeteria, right? Because it's easy. It's the reason they do the horse race stuff all the time, right? And they won't do the basic, what are the core things that are going on in the country? I said, all we have to do is flood the zone. Every day we hit them with 3 things. They'll bite on one and we'll get all of our stuff done. Bang, bang, bang. These guys will never be able to recover, but we got to start with muzzle velocities.
He doesn't want you to forget about him even for a second, and that's not healthy for anyone. So it's important to realize this and counter it by setting time limits every day on checking the news. Try to avoid doom scrolling on social media, and then sign off for the day without checking your phone at lunch or dinner to see what the orange man has signed with his tiny hands. When you do check the news, focus only on credible sources and media outlets, rather than the Twitter feed of Nazis like Elon Musk. We also find it best to categorize everything you consume about him into 3 categories. First are things Trump is doing for an obvious grift. Things like his NFTs, Bibles, Trump coins, watches, and everything else he's doing to get money. These generate massive headlines and a lot of clicks on social media, but the only ones buying any of it are MAGA supporters. So unless you're buying his products, these stories won't affect your wallet. In fact, I would argue these are good things. The less money MAGA supporters have, the less they can buy or compete with the rest of us. And the poorer they get, maybe they'll need to rely on some systems their leader is currently gutting. Even for the other ways he's making money, like Secret Service paying thousands of dollars per night to stay at Mar-a-Lago, it doesn't really affect us. Yes, it's taxpayer money we will all eventually have to pay back, but I'd rather the old man spend the next 4 years golfing than in the Oval Office signing anything. So yes, it's expensive, but his laziness might just be the thing that saves our country. So let him golf and go to NASCAR races as much as he wants. The second category is for things which have a long legal battle ahead. In the news business, they call this a long tail news story because it gets a lot of clicks right away, but then it has an extremely long ending or tail going through the courts. News outlets are going to clickbait you into stories about things like birthright citizenship, which are scary on the surface. But the truth is, organizations like the ACLU, Lambda Legal, and other massive civil rights law firms are going to sue him for virtually every action he takes. Those lawsuits will take months, if not years, to go through the court system. And until a decision is made in court, judges put a pause on whatever the action is so they can determine the legality of whatever Trump did. Plus, if you've been following the court cases, not just the news headlines about them, you'd know Trump's lawyers are being chewed up and spit out of federal courtrooms across the country, including by judges Trump appointed during his first term. So let's not get upset too much at things that will take months or years to even get decided on, and even then, most, if not all of them, will hopefully fail anyway. The third category is made up of things that we should worry about a little. This includes things like an illegal immigrant like Elon Musk taking over the presidency from Trump and dissolving major government agencies like US aid. Yes, this should worry us a little. But if you've done your research like I have on Project 2025, you'd know that there's a major power play between three people right now behind the scenes. They may publicly shake hands and smile for cameras, but Trump hates Elon Musk because Musk is taking all the credit and being called the real president by even MAGA supporters. Trump's ego cannot take someone else getting the credit for being president. And it's obvious Elon hates Trump too. After all, Elon's kid was picking boogers and putting them on Trump's desk while telling Donald, quote, "You're not the president and you need to go away. Shut your mouth." 4-year-olds don't just say things they came up with on their own after thoughtful deliberation. He learned those words from someone, and I'm guessing he calls that someone Dad. On the other side, Russ Vought, who wrote Project 2025 for Trump, hates Donald Trump and Elon. Keep in mind, while Trump thinks Project 2025 was written for him, it was actually written for the, quote, next conservative administration. So Vought didn't care if Trump was there or not. And in the final chapters of Project 2025, it makes it so Trump does so many illegal things that he gets impeached and J.D. Vance takes over. And J.D. Vance is Russ Vaught's actual pick. So Trump is currently following a plan Vought wrote to destroy him. And that Project 2025 plan uses government agencies to get their objectives completed. And Elon is currently destroying those same government agencies. This means Vaught's plan only works if Elon stops gutting the government. So Vought hates Trump and Elon Musk. It's possibly the dumbest power play between three egomaniacs we've ever seen. And while some things are bad news, the power play between the three of them will be their downfall because billionaires fighting amongst themselves means they have less time to fight us. I'm not saying don't worry about anything, but when you put things into these three categories, at the very least you can focus on what actually matters the most, and we'll give you some tips here in a minute to help you focus on them. But next up, replace the time you'd normally spend checking the news every second of every day with fun activities like reading books from your favorite author, spending time with loved ones without talking about he who must not be named at the dinner table, and going out to enjoy nature at local parks. In other words, do something that gets your mind off of politics. If your family constantly talks about him, try to steer the conversation to something else. Trust me that parents complain all the time about kids, in general, not sharing about how their day was in school, so tell them about what you learned in school rather than just saying, "It was fine, bruh." And I know I look too old to say bruh, but don't be salty. I can still yeet a few dope bars because I'm still the low-key goat, and my team tells me that sentence makes sense, so here's hoping the internet is kind. Anyway, share with your family how work is going, or funny stories of how your friends are doing, or customers who made your day a nightmare. The world is a big place, and we all must learn to live outside of Trump's orbit. If you see something that you really care about being targeted, and it fits into the third of those categories we should worry about a little, focus on an aspect you can control. Maybe volunteer your time supporting a cause that aligns with your values, or takes over for things that he's cutting. If you don't like Trump banning certain words from being used, volunteer for a local library to help more kids read, or a nonprofit publishing news. If you're upset he's cutting funding for schools, donate your time to a community center so you can bring education to kids in other ways. If you're able and want to help the LGBTQ community, volunteer for a local LGBTQ organization or apply to volunteer for the Trevor Project Crisis Intervention Hotline. They need your help now more than ever. We have a whole video to help you overcome anxiety and depression, which we'll link down below. But every once in a while, take a step back and focus on self-care. Do deep breathing exercises, get regular physical activity, meditate, spend time in nature, or jump headfirst into your favorite hobbies. I know it might sound like advice from an AA meeting, but the first step is to admit you have a problem. I'm not saying you should start drinking or drink until Trump starts to look handsome. Trust me, there's not enough alcohol in the world for that, even for Trump's not-so-secret crush Ivanka, but acknowledge how you feel. Write down your feelings in a journal. Name the feelings you're having instead of skipping past them. Remind yourself that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, and try some exercises to stay present and regulate stress. If that doesn't work, try talking to a licensed therapist who might be able to help you on more of an individual level. I'm not saying it should be your first move when you feel any anxiety, but it's okay to not feel okay all the time. We all need some help every so often, and going to a licensed therapist or psychiatrist is no different than going to your family doctor for a yearly checkup. Your brain needs the same kind of care sometimes, especially in the next 4 years. And no, that's not my segue into some sponsorship by a therapy company. It's just genuine advice. For your own mental health, we suggest to block everyone that you wasted time with. I know how easy it is to sit in the comment section of a local news article about something going on locally or nationally and try to convince someone wearing a red hat that it's Trump's fault. But if you notice, they keep asking you for your sources. You provide them, they don't read the source, and they continue to dig in further. When that fails, they call you names and talk about your appearance. When you try to refocus the conversation on how it's Trump's fault, they will do everything possible to blame everything else, or blame the Democrats who were in power 10 years ago, because admitting Trump is to blame means they were to blame in voting for him. In human psychology, one thing is harder for humans than anything else, and that is to admit they are wrong about anything, especially something this big. So they try to tear you down and waste your time, because admitting they were lied to means they would have to admit they were gullible enough to fall for it. As someone who has spent hours in comment sections trying to convince people, trust me when I say it's not worth it. Either the person you're trying to convince is a Russian propaganda worker trying to spread fear and misinformation, and trust me, there are millions of social media accounts run by such Russian agencies, or it's a genuine American who will never admit they were wrong about Trump, so you're never going to get the aha moment you're waiting for. The truth is, maggots are not worth your time, no matter if they're members of your family, friends, classmates, coworkers, or random strangers on the internet. Life is too short to waste half of it fighting with people who not only don't care about facts, but let's not forget the main reason they voted for Trump was to hurt their enemies. Every time we post a story about something terrible Trump did, and trust me, there's a lot of material, we get people from around the world who see the threat for what it is. But in all of my years in doing this show, I have never seen a MAGA supporter trying to convince me that Trump's anti-gay policy was good for the gay community. Every single time they come to our videos, they're laughing and they're genuinely happy at how upset we are. So you're never going to convince someone that something is horrible when they're too busy laughing at how upset it got you. For the next 4 years, or however long the old man is still alive, I think he genuinely will have this hold on America, of being a god to some folks who, let's be honest, needed a role model to look up to. They were already racist, homophobic, and outright hateful people who spent half their life clinging onto the losing army's flag from the Civil War, and the other half fighting for lower estate taxes while living in poverty. They're convinced billionaires are looking out for them, and billionaires must be brilliant because they're so rich, while at the same time complaining about evil corporations making their workers pee in bottles to get packages out faster. These were already hateful people who hid their hate in a closet for a long time. Someone came along and showed them that it was somehow okay to be hateful out in public, and they all came out of the closet one by one. And I know some will call it trendy to be a maggot, but it's truly something they were deep down inside all along. While those people are going to ingest his every word as gospel, call him Jesus, and worship the ground he walks on, even the Pope of the church Trump supposedly belongs to hates his guts. So don't give him the satisfaction of being in your mind 24/7. He's just not that important of a man-child. If there's something you're afraid of, the truth is, he's probably too dumb to actually enact his plan anyway. Because if there's one thing you can count on, it's Trump being stupid. Remember, he's the one who went to India to talk about their issues with China and told the Indian Prime Minister, at least India doesn't share a border with China. I guess the 2,100-mile border they share doesn't count. And when he went to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii and visited the USS Arizona Memorial, which still has the bodies of soldiers who died inside of it, Trump genuinely didn't know what war Pearl Harbor was a part of. I mean, it's only basic US history from just 5 years before Trump was born. My point is, he's stupid, but his team is only sometimes stupid. Sometimes we need to volunteer to help counter something he did, but most times, take a page from a 4-year-old who put boogers on Trump's desk and tell the convicted felon, "You're not the president and you need to go away, shut your mouth." Tell him about what you learned in school rather than just saying, "It was fine, bruh. It was fine, bruh. It was fine, bruh." And I know I look too old to say bruh, but don't be salty. I can still yeet a few dope bars because I'm still the low-key goat. Don't be salty. I can still yeet a few dope bars because I'm still the low-key goat. Don't be salty. I can still yeet a few dope... Don't be salty. I can still yeet a few dope bars because I'm still the low-key goat. And my... Don't be salty. I can still yeet a few dope bars because I'm still the low-key goat. And my team tells me that sentence makes sense. If you'd like to support our show, check out ProfessorPride.com for hundreds of ways to show off your pride. Check them out now along with our LGBTQ books, magnets, pins, umbrellas, digital downloads, and more at ProfessorPride.com. Special thanks to our members and subscribers this month who proudly support our work providing LGBTQ education and resources. Please subscribe to our channel or click on this video to continue enjoying Powered by Rainbows.